Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Today we would like to do the closing portion of the invasion of the Akko fortress, with adding some pertinent halachas that need to be kept in mind when someone is doing a prison break. So I hope you don't have to do that too often, but let me just start off with trying to clarify the Mishnah we mentioned before. And unfortunately, the issues in this Mishnah have been all too relevant over Jewish history, even recent Jewish history. But I want to lay down some of the laws here. Now, when this Mishnah tells us there's certain things they don't want us to do, the halacha ends off, well, sometimes you're not allowed to spend too much money on redemption, and sometimes don't do the prison break because there's going to be all kinds of repercussions. However, the halacha ends off in Shulchan Aruch, don't do this, don't do that sometimes, but negotiate. So we have to remember that Menachem Begin and Dov Cohen and all these fellas, there was no negotiation with the British. Ben Gurion kept trying to negotiate, kept trying, and kept being hopeful that they'd get somewhere with the British, but they didn't get too far. And once they start taking Jews prisoners and they get hung with not much of a trial, so at that point there wasn't a whole lot of room for negotiation, so the people who lived then did what they felt they had to do. Now, if there's time, there was a rescue of quite a few men that Rabbi Levin did in a peaceful way. When his letter didn't work, there were other things he was able to do, not for Dov Gruner, but there were some other peaceful things that he did with the Irgun that didn't involve bullets, but we'll see if we get to that today. So Mishnah says like this: Ein poden es hashvuyim yeser al kedei demeim and eitikun ha'olam. We don't redeem captives more than their value, and of course you're going to need a good basis to figure out the going value of a prisoner. You know, that's a toughie. But the Mishnah says don't go running to redeem everybody at every price because of tikkun ha'olam, because of fixing of the world. So ask the Gemara, what are you talking about? What do you mean fixing of the world? What are you making a rule about this for? So the Gemara says we'll give you two possibilities. Possibility number one, duchka ditzipura, too much pressure on the congregation. That if the Jewish community is going to run and spend top dollar to get every single prisoner out of prison, we're not going to have any money to do anything else. We're going to run out really, really quickly over there. So that gets back to Reagan negotiating with terrorists. So is that the concern, asked the Gemara? And we do have to realize there are communities that do spend too much money on this and that, and they don't have for what they need. You know, Baltimore has a problem, which I think Annapolis would like to have this problem. We got too many shoals. Right, Elliot? You think Baltimore has too many shoals?
I don't know.
You don't know. I see. You're not political. You want to stay out of it.
I want to stay out of it. It's okay if I have shoals.
Oh, okay. All right, but in general, people...
As long as they all have a minion, it's okay.
I used to go to all kinds of shows in Brooklyn when I was in Brooklyn.
All right, but in general, a lot of people think, open shows, open as many shows as you want, no problem. So, no nicer a fellow, and the Chavetz Chaim says, it is too a problem. He says there's a lot of detailed rules about opening shuls, and he gives a warning that, like David said, you better make sure that there's a minyan for everybody. But the Chavetz Chaim says, hey, check the finances. Can the community financially afford to have so many shuls or so many schools? And there are problems. There are problems for that. I daven in a shul in Baltimore that has had extreme problems covering the air conditioning. And there was one Shabbos where we didn't have air conditioning at all in the summer because there's just too many pulling from all different directions. And if you speak to community organizers, they will tell you there are times when there's too much money going into too many other areas, and things don't get taken care of. I mean, there's some people say, don't worry, have bitachon, everything will be all right. Just do, you'll see, the money will fall from heaven. If you ask the real big rabbis, they almost never say that. So the issue about ducha de tzipura, even though it's the biggest mitzvah to get someone out of prison, but the Mishnah says they did put a cap on it. Because if you're going to run to get everyone out at any price, the tzibur, you're not going to be able to cover Jewish needs. Is that the reason? Or, says the Gemara, maybe that's not our main concern. Maybe our concern is what's going to happen next time. What's going to happen next time? We've all heard stories about communities where Sifrei Torah have been stolen, ransomed, people paid big bucks for it, and then they just did it again. And then they did it again because they saw it's a very profitable business. I mean, I just read from Rabbi Baruch Broshlit, the head of Ahavas Yisrael in Baltimore. In his book, he has a horrible, horrible story of a sefer from Silver Spring that got extorted by an ex-Nazi Polish guard for thousands of dollars, and the poor sefer not only had to pay the money in cash, he got beaten almost to death. I mean, so the Mishnah, the Gemara warns over here, well, maybe the main reason about paying too much too often for captives isn't just pressure on the Jewish community, it's, well, if you give in once, what's going to be next time? So right away, the halacha people jump in here with the what ifs and what abouts. And they're probably all the ones in your mind, and if I don't say it, tell me afterwards. They say, wait a second. You're legislating how often and how much to pay to get someone out of prison? What if it's my wife? What if it's my brother? What if I'm Bill Gates? Or whoever, I don't want to say names of any other people around here, but that's a generic name. Well, what about that? They're so close to me. They're like myself. And what if I'm so rich I can do it myself without burning the tzibur? So all these cases are discussed in halacha. The general consensus is, if you have funds to get yourself or your wife or your children out, the general consensus is, just do it, and that's clear. And that's clear in halacha. If the case of the rich person that tells everybody, I won't touch shul funds, I'll do it myself, that's a bit more controversial. Because again, we're just very, very afraid of what's going to be next time. So the Gemara doesn't answer that question. The Gemara is not sure what is the main problem. Now, what's interesting, there's a lot of Torah and history on what Jews did and when these situations came up. The most famous case, which you're probably all familiar with, and if you're not familiar, you're going to be familiar now, was the case of Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg. Now, Rav Meir of Rothenburg is running your life. And Gil's thinking, I thought the Rambam is running my life. That's, 40% of your life. The other 60% of our lives is being run by Rav Meir of Rothenburg, nice rabbi from Germany. He looked just like Bruce. But anyway, he was the rabbi of the Rosh Rabbeinu Usher. Most things we do are either from the Rosh or the Rambam. He was taken captive. They demanded a huge amount of money for his release. They got the money together, and according to all opinions, you should have been able to take him out because he was the leader of the Jewish people in Germany, all that. And he told them, no, don't do it. And they kept offering, and the rabbi kept saying no, and they pleaded with him. He died in the prison, and then it took years for the Jews to get money together again and permission to get his bones out. The rabbi's skeleton lay in the prison for years. And there's a lot of discussion around him. What was he afraid of? The main thing you probably guess. He was afraid, never mind who I am or who you think I am. If you pay money for me, it's going to be a festival on rabbis. They're just going to keep capturing rabbis and many more and more money and draining the Jewish people. There'll be no end to it. But there's a big discussion for the Yam Shoshama we'll get into. But there's just a general warning from the Ger Rebbe. The Ger Rebbe, the Heilige Sfas Emes, there's a lot more to it, but he gives a general warning. He said, when you are trying to figure out if doing a particular mitzvah will be a drain on the community funds, he said, make sure you're really, really honest with yourself. Because he said it's so easy to say, oh, no, it's too much of a pain, too much of a kvetch, we need money for this. He says there's a very, very big Yetzer Hara to make things as saying, oh, that's too much pressure. He's very, very special Yetzer Hara for that. So he says, really, really check your honesty on that, because it's a very difficult one. Right, but that's part one of the mission. Second part we need, which will bring us into the end of what happened with the Yaakov fortress, is this part. And again, I bless myself and you. You never should need these halachas, but we have Jonathan Pollard and a long list of other people in Israel in this country who are in prison, and people aren't sure what to do, and the questions do come up. It's there. What can I tell you? Then the Gemara asks, so why don't you do a prison break? What's this? Now this is a little bit funny, because if you're raised in America and you have war heroes, and we love to talk about war heroes, and we like movies like The Great Escape and The Dirty Dozen and all those, whatever you like, and we like Rambo. See, we don't need Rambo because we got you. So anyway, we're excited. Prison breaks, all this kind of stuff. And if you're as old as me, you watch Hogan's Heroes with a whole bunch of various Jewish stars on there. So, hey, what do you mean? Prison break, that's the way to do it. Bang, boom, it's great. But the Torah says, calm down, because sometimes a lot of hashkafas outlooks were brought up with, and from the movies, when you get into real life, it doesn't always pan out as being the best thing. So the Gemara says, why don't you want me to run to do a prison break? So the Gemara says, so we have an argument between Rav Shimon Gamliel and the Tanakama, the first Rebbe, what exactly the issue is. So the Gemara says that the question is built on this. If you do a prison break, there's two things to worry about. And the Gemara is not sure which one we're more worried about. If you do a prison break, you're probably not going to get everybody out. They are going to almost get everybody out, but they're not going to get everybody out. So the question is, if you do a prison break and you save 80 and there's 20 left, what are they going to do to those 20 remaining? And that's a big halachic issue. You want to be a hero and save lives and get 80 out. You're not going to get everybody out. You're probably not. I mean, even maybe Captain America could do that. It depends how Stan Lee writes the story. But whatever it is. But in reality, you're probably not going to get everybody out. So there's going to be, let's say, 20 left. What are they going to do to those 20? And that is going to be on your head. That's one question, the Gemara says. And the other thing that we're worried about prison breaks is we're also concerned with, even if you can get them all out, what are they going to do with the next prisoners? Are they going to put them in neck shackles? Are they going to call up Edgar Allan Poe and Bruce and put them in the pit and the pendulum strapped to the floor with rats and a pendulum over them? Bruce is thinking, I would like that. But whatever, so the Gemara says, what are we more worried about? Those who are still there or the future? So the Gemara says, is this a mute point? Is this all academic? What's the big difference? So the Gemara says, it would make a difference if you're only getting out one guy. If there's only one guy in prison and you want to do a prison bust to get him out, so then you don't have to worry what's going to happen with the rest, but if that's all you're worried about is what's going to happen to the rest, so there are no rest. You get the one guy out. But if you're worried about what's going to happen in the future, the next time, then you have what to worry about. And these are all in Shulchan Aruch, and unfortunately these halachas have been used. But let's get to the prison break over here. When we last left our heroes, Dov Cohen, who we said was originally a war hero for the British in World War II, and now he is fighting for the Irgun. So what the Irgun did is they constructed a ring within a ring, because the British at the Akko fortress, this impenetrable place that even Napoleon couldn't get through, with the thick walls and the thick bars. The only way to do it is you had to have a ring of the Irgun hidden inside of the British, of all the British forces. And the hardest part, you had to have an open line during the day of escape. Open that the rescuers could get in, that those being saved could get out, and you have to have everything open during the day and make sure the British don't come in, which is basically impossible. right? But they did it anyway. Now, that's still not enough. Now, they knew something could always go wrong. Dr. Friedman, what's the name of the philosopher who said, whatever can go wrong will go wrong?
That'd be Murphy.
Whose rule is that?
Murphy's rule.
Yeah,
Murphy's law.
Murphy's law? Okay, fine. Murphy's law. So they know Murphy's law. I don't know what part of the Shulchan Aruch that's in. And they said, there's always a chance that there's something we didn't cover. So they did like this. They had one direction around the fortress covered with mines, M-I-N-E-S. And they had another area covered with canister. And Menachem Begin says here, they weren't real big canisters to go off, but they were enough to make trouble. And then in another direction, near another army camp, they had mortars set up. That as soon as the attack began to the fortress, set off the mortars over there, completely discombobulate the nearest army force, have the mines ready, have the canisters ready, and hopefully it's going to be okay. Well, the prisoners had a dynamite on the inside. They blow up the steel bars. The Agun came from the outside. They were able to blow a just large enough hole to get in, and they start bringing people out. So right away, just like in the movies, the guards on the towers, they're shooting them up like anything. But the Aguners ready, because the Agun had a ring of forces on the inside, so they're shooting back. Now picture this: you have machine gun fire going up and down in every direction, and the prisoners have to get out, with all this. Now, right away, the British sent out an alarm in 3 different directions. And they were the 3 different directions the Irgun was ready for. So right away they contacted, they probably heard the noise, the nearby army camp. They got pelted by mortar fire, and they could have responded, but they were so flipped out of their minds with mortars coming at them from Jews they didn't know were supposed to be there, that they couldn't deal with themselves. A truckload of troops came speeding from Haifa 13 miles away. They never made it because the Agun set off canister fire, and they weren't that big. Now hold on, before I forget, Gil translate. It says here the mortars really weren't that great. They were only 2-inch mortars. What does that mean?
It's small.
I know it's small, but what does that really mean, 2-inch mortars?
It's a diameter of the mortar. Basically, the mortars that they used back there were essentially just like cannonballs that had like explosives inside them. So when they landed, they would break up and explode. That was the only difference between like a cannonball.
So
and
what was 2 inches?
2 inches is very small because you're talking about.
What was 2 inches?
The ball.
The diameter
of the ball
of the ball, yes, and also the diameter of the cannon barrel.
But it scared the living daylights out of them.
Well, because it makes a lot of noise and blows
in your
up.
Pocket? At home?
Makes a lot of noise and blows up. But
so that was the whole thing, right? So it completely disoriented the nearby army troop.
Right.
But the mortars got the army troop. The trucks that were speeding from Haifa 13 miles away never got there because the canisters went off. Begin calls them. We stopped them by little threatening canisters, and we destroyed their truck. And then there was a British police troop that came, but then they hit the minefield. So everything looked like Hashem was on their side, and the Irgun is going to pull this off. We're going to get everybody out. But there was one group that had an off day. One group of British troops that had an off day because they went bathing, and somehow they got back in unaccounted for, and they're going to be the problem. This group comes in, and of course, like any good Brits, they didn't go even to the swimming pool without their weapons. They came back, they got in, and they set up a roadblock. And this is going to be the problem. There's 2 problems that they can't fix. This handful of British that got in to set up a roadblock, and when it came time to leave, they sounded trumpets. There's one group that didn't hear the trumpet or get the trumpet. And they're going to be running a little bit too late, and it's got some of the greatest heroes. So this is what happened. The roadblock is up, and everybody's getting out and running for it, and this as best they can. Da-da-da! So, they're running out, and there was a vehicle that was headed for the roadblock. Dove cone, and again, it's very sad. You remember in the Entebbe movie, at Entebbe, the main hero that ran the whole thing gets killed on the way out to the plane. So Dove Cone, the main hero, he's gonna get it over here too. Dove Cone ran in front of this vehicle, and he started waving his hands. Turn around! There's a British roadblock. So just like in the movies, turns around. But with a vehicle, if you make a sudden move, especially if you hit a cactus fence, it's going to knock out your car. All right, car, truck, so messed it up. So they got out, and by now there's weapon fire all over the place. They're dodging, running, shooting back and forth. Vehicle number 1 is out. So they run into vehicle number 2. They get into vehicle number 2. Now you have to understand, these Israeli heroes were already shot in the arm. So Dov Cohen and these fellows, they get hold of a truck of unarmed Brits. They jump inside the truck, get rid of the driver. Their driver takes over. The Israelis, with bullets in their arms, pin the British soldiers. You know how hard that is? Don't try it. But anyway, so they have the guys in a lock with bleeding arms, and they're going as far as they can. And eventually, that truck broke down, so that they lacked strength in their arms. They took the British soldiers, they threw them out, and they found one more truck. Okay, this truck is going to be it. This is going to be a salvation from God. But what happens is heartbreaking. So there's Arabs in the truck, there's British in the truck. So the Israelis, and again, more and more people getting full of bullets and falling. They overtake the truck, and this is what happened. Dov Cohen shot the driver of the truck. So now everything should have been fine. And the driver's name is Shemesh. That's his name. So Shemesh figures, okay, this is perfect. You shot, and they're using Bren guns. Okay, I'm totally ignorant. What's a Bren gun? Help?
Machine gun. Machine gun.
Got me on that one.
Every other page here it says Bren against Bren. Earl!
I'm guessing it was probably some British gun, British weapon that they used.
We have more military. We got Weisblum. It says here in 1947 they're using Bren guns. What's a Bren gun?
Some kind of machine gun.
It's before the Uzi's time. It's a old-fashioned, like the large one. With you put each bullet independently.
Oh, okay.
Oh my!
It's non-automatic.
So it's Bren against Bren, but this is what happened. Dov Cohen shot the driver of the truck. He rolled out. Shemesh was so excited that now they had control of the truck, he jumped in the driver's seat too early because Dov Cohen was still firing.
Yeah.
So one bullet killed the driver, he rolled out. Shemesh, our guy, was so excited he jumped in too soon and his own man killed him. And he was the driver. And we're talking military vehicles, so not just anybody could drive the military vehicle, right? Just because you have a license from Annapolis doesn't mean you can. And other people tried to get the truck going. They couldn't do it. They got him. They got him. They took him in. So, and of course, you know, they're going to go on trial. And what I got, the right word isn't kick, but they tell what happened at the trial. And there's a great line that one of the men had from a fellow Avshalom Chaviv. He was one of the heroes that was captured by the British. And he said, "When are you British going to get the message? The Irish have been trying to give you a message for years about to leave them alone and they want to be free. And Irish resistance grows and grows, and your people die and their people die, and there are blood stains and unforgettable memories on the British conscience that will never come out." And then he says like this of Shalom Chaviv. If you, and this is at the trial, and again, these aren't much of a trial. They're gonna put their red clothes on and they're gonna kill him. But he says, if you were wise British tyrants and would learn from history, why not take an example from Ireland or from colonial America? You lost the colonial America when you tried to crush them. You lost that one. So give us Israel already. Give us the colony of Israel. What you really ought to do is hurry up and get out of this country which is enveloped in the flames of holy revolt, flames which are not extinguished, but only flare up more and more with every drop of blood, because we're going to keep fighting against you. And he says, even your own man, George Bernard Shaw agrees with me. He's quoting this guy, and of course they killed him. They killed him anyway. All right, but they did save an awful lot. They did save an awful lot of people. They were past negotiation. But I have just enough time to give you about a more peaceful rescue, which might be more in the confines of the Gemara Gittin. There used to be a candy man named Moshe in Yerushalayim, and he was a friend of Rabbi Aryeh Levin. Rabbi Aryeh Levin was liked by everybody. But anyway, just these people who did this revolt and the prison rescue, they should be blessed, and their blood should be blessed, and Hashem should bench us that we shouldn't have to do anything like that ever again. But we have to appreciate and respect their heroism for giving it all for our country and our people. The Irgun didn't always have to blow up things. Now, Rabbi Levin was respected because he was a gentle fellow that would carry messages back and forth to the various prisons. There's a candy man in Yerushalayim whose name was Moshe. I doubt he's alive anymore. And Moshe tells this story, and it's in this book, Tzaddik in Our Time. Rabbi Levin came to visit 1 week, and this fellow Moshe was in a lot of trouble. Now, they noticed, and a lot of tzaddikim do this, some big tzaddikim, they look down more than they look up. They're very humble. One visit, Rabbi Levin calls over this guy Moshe. Psst. He's whispering. He says, look at the corner of this room. They were at the lunchroom. Moshe was in confinement, but they brought him out for lunch. Look at the corner of the room. In the far corner of the room, there was some kind of a grease stain. And the prisoners had never noticed it before. And they figured, well, the rabbis are very humble. He always looks down. I guess he noticed it. So he whispered to him, if you can sneak in that hole, it's loose. You can escape. You're gonna mix with all kinds of noxious, disgusting water from the kitchen and the rest of the place, and the rest of the refuge. But if you go in there and you move yourself, you'll be dirty. You can make it out, and if you keep going long enough, you have friends in the Irgun. Here it is. It won't be pleasant to walk through with all the dirty water, waste matter about your feet, but it can be done. It leads out to the shore of the Mediterranean Sea. Get your friends to help you and go down through it tomorrow at this very time after lunch. When you come out near the ocean, you'll find your friends waiting for you. Now, at first, they were a little bit leery. They loved the rabbi. He's holy. Maybe he's divine. But, the rabbi knows how to pray, but, rabbis know how to escape. I mean, is the rabbi dreaming here? So, like any good prisoners, they checked it out. They sent somebody in. They got somebody to schmooze with the guards, and I guess this is before video cameras, and they said, Rabbi's right, go for it. And the next day, sure enough, they went for it, and I just want to get the number of 50 men escaped. And at the end of the sewage pipe near the Yam HaTichon, the underground movement had a transport waiting to shoot them away till safety. So in this one, not a bullet fired. They got out. It was undetected. I guess the rabbi didn't do this too much because then it would have blown his cover. But you see that now. The only question is, after the 50 got out, did they find out? Did they figure out and cover up and check the things? Or is there tougher security than the ones that were in there? They don't tell you all that. All we know is Moshe got out, and he had a lifelong friendship with Rabbi Levin. And I'll end off with this. Moshe wasn't the firmest guy in the street, but he loved Rabbi Levin, and they had a deal. They said, someday we're going to get the kotel back. And Rabbi Levin said to Moshe, when we get the kotel back, I want you to go with me. Fast forward, 1967, it happened. Rabbi Levin used to buy candy from Moshe for his Talmidim, and the day came, Rabbi Levin Zatzal came to Moshe Zechon Lebracha, said, Moshe, we got it back. We got a date to the Kota. Let's go. And they went together. So that prison grade worked out very, 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 very well. And Hashem should help us all to get to Israel in a peaceful way, standing up with no bullets. Thank you very much for hanging out.
Yeshiva.